So if you've been watching this channel, you know that I don't like to waste time. And that ended up biting me earlier this week. I'll tell you how. All right. So normally when I get to the facility, the Walmart DC, I will park my car. I'll usually go by the truck, whatever truck I'm happen to be in, and unless I need to be issued one. But then I will put my stuff in there, and I will turn the ignition to the on position. That will start up OmniTrax. If I happen to be in a truck that doesn't start up the OmniTrax system automatically, I will have to turn on the master disconnect to kill power to the whole truck, give it a few seconds, then turn it back on. Then the OmniTrax will come up. It takes a while to initialize, and that gives it the time. So that way, once I kind of get my world situated there in the truck, I will go inside, get my paperwork and that kind of stuff, and then come back out. But I usually, because you're sitting down so much and I like to be as active as I can, I will usually jog. I'll jog unless I know it's wet or something like that outside. And so, or if there's trucks around. So I will jog from my truck over to the office, then I'll jog back. Now, you remember that I said a few episodes ago that some of the trucks operate with the same key? That ended up being fun because, so I got into the truck earlier this week. I think it was 2 days ago. I went into the office, came back out, and I was looking at the paperwork. Could have sworn I got back into my truck. But it ends up being that I was in the next truck over, which was the same exact color. And it was like when I walked out of the truck, I walked right across the fuel island. Straight across. And then when I came back, I walked straight back across. But it ends up being that the gaps between the two trucks is right along the center. So when I was leaving, I said, okay, veer to the left in order to go around to the office. When I was coming back this way, I said, okay, veer the other direction to get back. Veer, and even though I should have been veering to the left again. And so I ended up opening the door and jumping right into the driver's seat. And then as I did that, I happened to realize that the curtain going to the back was drawn. And I looked at it and just in a split second, my mind said the curtain's drawn, and it wasn't just 3 minutes ago. And there's stuff around this truck that instantly a trucker who was asleep in the back with a CPAP mask and everything, he flings awake and flings the door open, and he is so brain dead. He looks at me, and I'm like, I am so sorry, dude. I'm so sorry. I got in the wrong truck. And he was just so flustered. I grabbed the paperwork that I put on the passenger side seat, and I got out of there, and I was like, oh no, this poor dude. I felt so bad for him. If I see, because his image, he's a Hispanic dude and he's a little bit bigger. If I see him again, like not by barging into his truck while he's trying to sleep, poor guy. I mean, he's probably, if he's like me, he's going to be flung awake and he's going to have a hard time getting back to sleep. I hope that's not the case. I hope he gets back to sleep. I feel terrible for disrupting now, but I guess it was bound to happen with the hustling that I'm doing all the time and the looking at the paperwork and jumping right in. So anyway, let me tell you how this week went aside from that. Actually, first let me start off with one of my frustrations I've come to learn about SlipSeat. You have 7 days in a work week, okay? And then you have your payday. So anything you finish by Tuesday is paid out by Thursday or Friday that week. And then a new day for Wednesday starts the next week. You have to work 5 days in that. You have to also work a minimum of 7 jobs or do at least 1,350 miles. Okay, that's in order to get guaranteed pay. That's the minimum. The frustration, if you're in SlipSeat, is that you can only work 4 days in many weeks. The reason why is you have 7 days here, right? So I am off this day. I'm off this day. Then I go to work 5 days. That's no problem. I'm in the cycle. I have 5 days. But what if I finish up the last 2 days, let's say these 2 days, and then these 2 days, this is the end of my work week, but it's going into 2 days in my next week. Then I'm off 3 days. Then I work 2 more days. That means I'm only going to have 4 days of pay for that paycheck. And that means that you might not get guaranteed pay if you don't do your miles, or you don't do your number of loads. And that is at the mercy of the schedulers and traffic and things like that. So, I mean, the schedulers could end up sending you to, Atlanta and, all around Atlanta, a few different stores, and that may burn up 7 or 8 of your hours if you're a daytime driver. Then by the time you get back, you might not have enough time to do a back haul or something. And if that chews up 9 of your hours and you've only gone 140 miles and you do this a few different days as needed by the company, you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to end up getting minimum pay. I don't really run into that as much on nights, but I did this last time. And mainly it was because of those 4 days, I ended up getting minimal pay this last week. And the reason why is because of those 4 days, I had some really, when I first started my week, I had a couple of really good days. So I had 2 really good days where I went to like 400 so on miles. And then I had my Wednesday. And if you recall from my Wednesday last time, I ended up having my truck break down. So I had to be put in another truck. And my last 2 loads of the last week ended up being on the small side. And so when I started up the new week, only 1 day ended up going towards that. So I had 4 days of pay, and there were 2 smallish loads. One where it was cut way short, like at 100 and some odd miles because of the truck breaking down, and then 1 additional load that was decent. It was around 300 miles. I didn't get what I should have gotten in order to get minimal pay. That the company had my back because I guess they realized that it's not my fault that I'm on a slip seat schedule and that I didn't end up working. I worked all the scheduled days that I was on. I didn't deny anything. I didn't turn down any loads. I did all my job. I did my part. But still, I'm not a minimal guy. I like to hustle. So that was a little bit frustrating. So how did it go this week? My Monday was, I went to Augusta and then Aiken, South Carolina, uneventful. I came back and had a few hours left. And so they said, let's see if we can let's get you over to Monroe and Bogart. So I went and did another meat and produce over to Monroe, and then to a place in Monroe, and then to Bogart. Actually, it was Athens, now that I think about it. It was Athens, Georgia, and Bogart. It wasn't Monroe. And then I got back, and it was fine. And the main reason that's fine to send me out on is because I'm not coming back through Atlanta in rush hour. The biggest frustration I have is when they send me, for my second load, when they send me out west. Because if they send me west, I have to go over 316 or even go over to 85 or something like that. And then it just gets so clustered. Part of the reason is because of all the stupid road construction they're doing. It's all over the place. They're just, they have to close down everything, and they have to just do so much construction at the exact same time. And so they'll reduce 3 lanes down to 1, and they'll just leave it there even though they're not doing any work. Day or night, anytime I go by there, there's never any work. And there's sometimes I will go by there and I'll say, okay, I'm going to look at the angle of the bulldozer. And sometimes it'll change, but sometimes it doesn't. And I'm like, oh, great, you haven't moved in 3 days or 4 days or whatever. So that's a little bit frustrating. But they're doing a lot of road construction all around Atlanta. And they're putting up signs, but it doesn't help because you still have to go through it in order to get to where you're going in a truck. So you have to sit in the traffic. And so I can imagine that could be really frustrating if you live in traffic a whole lot. But when it's my last job of the day, it can be quite annoying when I go out, beat traffic to someplace, and then I get caught in traffic on the way back. So I've tried to convey to the planners and the office staff, if they happen to have a second load or a back haul that's not scheduled, send me out east. Send me out east because I don't have to go through Atlanta. And I won't really have to worry about rush hour coming back. So they're starting to get it. They're doing well. But I'll get into scheduling a little bit later. Okay, my second job of the day my second trip of the week, my second day. Let's just word it that way. I'm tired because of something I'll get to later. This is the second week in a row it's happened too. So my Tuesday, I went to Tryon, to Dalton, and then Dalton again. This is where, starting at 7 p.m., when they understand my schedule, they know not to give me any 4 a.m. stores unless there's no way in the world I can get there until after 4, or unless it's kind of close to it. Like, if I'm delayed or something like that at night, some people will get delayed and then you end up someplace at, before 4, which is actually what happened today, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And then the second load they gave me was the entire frozen dairy truck was going to Oakwood, and that was a Sam's Club. And I tell you, the girl that was unloading, she was young, but she was fast. And one trick that she did that I thought was really cool is that she was taking the forklift. You have the 2 pallets like this in the back. She took the forklift in the middle of both of them, lifted it up just a little bit, and then dragged them to the very, very edge. So all the way from the back, all the way to the front. And they slide very nicely in the trailer. So she did that, and then she would disconnect from one, grab it, and take it out, and it was very streamlined. It was very fast. She was very fast. And she was pretty too, not that matters or anything, but what can I say? I noticed. Anyway, so that was my Tuesday. My Wednesday, I went to Thompson, Georgia, which is out towards Augusta. Then I went up and cut through back roads up to Greenwood, South Carolina, and then to Greenville, South Carolina. Right as I was coming back south and just about to enter Georgia, I was called by the office, and the office said to me, "Hey, we had a couple of people call out sick. Would you be able to do a second load?" And I said, "I think so. What do you have?" And because I think I'll have hours. And she said, "Well, I said, "What do you have?" And she said, "I have one going to Claremont Road in Atlanta, which is like 90 miles. And then I have one that goes to Gainesville and then Buford." And that was 110 miles. And so that's a 2-stop versus the 1-stop. And I said, Atlanta would mean beating traffic down there and then coming back in reverse commute. Doing the Gainesville Buford, I would get through the traffic, get down to the second location, hopefully not in traffic, but then coming back, I would probably run into traffic. So I said, are they both ready? And she said, yes, they're both ready to go. And I said, which do you think would be more difficult for you to get covered? She said, well, the Buford Gainesville one leaves quickest. It leaves in like an hour and a half. So, and then the other one takes like 2.5 hours. So she said, that one will be the one that I could probably have more time to get filled. So if you could take the earlier one, I'd appreciate it. I said, yeah, give me that one then. So as soon as I finished there, I went to Gainesville, unloaded something like 7 or 8 pallets, and then went to Buford and unloaded the rest. And then I came back. Thursday, I was sent through the North Georgia mountains. So basically, I was sent to Blairsville, which is kind of funny if you go from Monroe, because if you use a car GPS, if you use truck maps, something like that, it will route you the most direct way that is involving highway roads. But one of them happens to go around Blood Mountain. I forgot the interstate or the highway. But when you do that, it gets hilly and it gets very wiggly. As a matter of fact, it turns way hard back on itself a couple of times. And it banks the wrong way on some of these turns. So that means like if you were doing a bank turn and it goes this way, you would expect it to lean this way so that way you stay on the road a little bit better. But no, it leans outwards. So you're doing this number as you go. And I'm like, you don't want to bank them that way because that's the side that you can fall off the mountain on. But, who knows why the road people do what they do. Government, what can I say? And then I got back. And after finishing these runs, so instead of going by Blood Mountain, it routes me still 78 to 285, which is 6 to 8 miles longer than it is if I go 316. And it also takes a little bit longer too, like almost up to 10 minutes. But then once I get on the same path, it's the same way. But it takes me basically from Monroe down here, up here, and then way over here to get to Blairsville, as opposed to going from here to up to Blairsville, which is only like 100 miles. So instead it makes it 164. But, the North Georgia mountains, you will go slower. And it's mainly because you're going to be wiggly all over the place. It's probably extra wear and tear on the truck. And And also, it's probably an increased risk factor. A lot of people don't do mountain driving very well, and it's probably somewhat of a concern from the company. So I don't blame them for doing that. And then I got back to the office and I said, I had plenty of time. So I said, I got like 6 hours and change left. And do you have something else? And she said, I don't. I have nothing. Only thing I can send you out on is frozen dairy, but those can't be delivered until 9. And then I started at 7, so I would have to be done by 9 on my 14-hour clock. So there's no way I could do that. And she said, okay, well, I guess we'll call it tonight. And so that was that for the night. And then this morning, interesting. Let me actually talk about the truck first. This truck that I've been driving this week, I was issued it was dirty. It was used by someone who's out of town. I later confirmed that. I said, the guy who's normally in this truck, he says, yeah, he's out of town this week on vacation. I'm like, okay, because this truck definitely looks lived in. It's dirty. The passenger side seat, I can tell he has a dog that's got like brownish, golden fur, because that seat is full of fur. The back bunk is full of fur, even though it's like the standard, mattress, and then the little cover that's not like bed sheets. It is covered in fur. So that would be incredibly annoying to sleep in. If you have allergies, screw that. Also, the guy smokes. So it's another truck that I've been given that smokes. So I have to spend a lot of time with the window down. But as of the time of this recording, it's starting to warm up. By the time you're watching this and able to watch this, it's going to be full throttle hot here in Georgia. But it was not bad, especially when you drive at night. It's like 70 degrees, but when you're driving down the road and that wind is hitting you and there's no sun, it's not really that big of a deal. What is a big deal is when people don't do proper pre-trips. Like, for example, I figured out that the air tanks were not holding air properly. And the reason why is because there's a leak in the rear left airbag in the suspension. And if you put your head down there, you can hear it hissing out. And I couldn't find where it is, but I could hear it. And that's not normal sound. And then the air pressure in the tanks, you have to leave the truck idling, which is one thing that I know the company wants you to kill the engine as soon as you get someplace. Just pull up, turn off the truck. The problem is the truck loses air pressure as soon as I disengage or I engage the trailer. It just loses air pressure. So what I always end up having to do is in this truck is I have to stop and then leave the truck running for a bit until I hear the governor cut off, on the air tanks. So I have to do that. And if I go to fuel up the reefer or something like that, I will drive there. I will log myself into fuel on duty, and then I will put the fuel in while the truck is running. And then I will jump back in and head out. You're supposed to turn the truck off. But if I do that, then as soon as I crank up the truck, it's going to take 2 or 3 minutes for it to build up air pressure again. And that's annoying when it happens multiple times. And sometimes just shifting, when I get up to the security gate, when I shift from neutral or drive to neutral to give them the paper and that kind of stuff, even if I keep my foot on the brake and don't engage the brakes, it loses air pressure. So you have to build it back up. So I am having to, in this truck, let it idle. And then if it starts counting down saying it's automatic shutoff, I will turn it to neutral and straight back, or I will go to drive and then straight back to neutral. So that way it doesn't shift on me. And that's what I end up having to do. Now, the guy that's occupying the truck that I've been in, he comes in on my Friday when I finish at 9 a.m. He comes in at 9 a.m. So the company, Martin actually sent me a message when I was in the truck, actually, right about to start my shift. They said, you're going to be in a different truck tonight. And they gave me a different truck number. So I gathered up all my stuff out of that truck, and I turn and I leave and go to the other truck. And when I go in there, it's the same key. So I was able to enter there. And I said, hello, because the curtains were drawn. And I was like, I don't want to startle somebody else. And there was nobody there. So I started to do pre-trip. Come to find out they have the steering wheel lock on and none of my keys will work. So I called the office and I said, hey, the steering column lock is on. So I can't use this truck. And they were like, oh, let's see what we can find for you. And then I said, if I may, I have... I can get in the truck that I've been in this previous week because I have to be back by 9 a.m. If I'm not, then I'm not going to be able to. I'll violate my 14-hour clock. So they were like, okay, we'll put you back on that one. But odd thing is, the truck they put me in that had the lock of the steering column, person doesn't pre-trip that one either, because it was the coolant was low in that one. And that was the first thing I noticed. Then as I came around, I saw the steering lock and I tried my keys. And then when it didn't work, I left. I had to move out of the truck again, move back into the one that I know. But like, if you were to properly pre-trip, you would realize that the air tanks were leaking on this truck I've been using. You would also realize that on the rear right inside tire, the front right inside drive tire, there was a chunk of metal that was probably this big in diameter that was recessed in, causing a big bulge. Like if the piece of metal was stuck out like it was like this, the whole bulge was sticking out an extra like quarter to a third of an inch all the way around. And that bulge stuck out like that. So when I noticed it, I called emergency roadside assistance and told them where the truck was going to be. Because I noticed I was probably parked on it when I did my pre-trip, but when I did my post-trip, you can, if the tire is like this, you can see all the way down to like, here, all the way over. So if it's on the bottom, you're not going to see it in your pre-trip or your post-trip. But if it's on any of the other faces, you can see it. And that's when I saw it. So I called emergency roadside. They came and fixed it while I was off duty, which is nice. So that's cool. The other thing about this truck that I found is that, those knobs you can get that you clamp to the steering wheel and then you just grab the knob and turn? It had one of those. It looked like an 8-ball, for playing pool. I have come to find that when we're driving down the road and just kind of casually driving, it's cool to just take a couple of fingers and throw it in there, but it's no more or less comfortable than if you take your whole hands and just, put up your fingers in the middle and you drive like that. Not an issue. What is an issue, though, is when you go to back up. Because I'll turn it, and then I'm like, oh, I overshot it, or I did this. And I have it down to a science with my hands. I know what I need to do in order to back in properly. But with the knob, I can't do it. When I'm driving on the road, I'll just keep my fingers on it, and that will correct me for the most part. That and another a thing that is a little bit frustrating from time to time is that every single truck is different with it comes down to the acceleration. Some trucks are governed at 65 and they do not go higher than that. Some you have to tap the gas, the throttle, the accelerator, and then tap it again in order to engage passing mode that gets you up to 67. Some trucks you can only accelerate to 65, but as soon as you enable the cruise control, you can plus it up to 68 or 67. This truck is the first one I've worked in that will hit 67. But if you're going up a hill, it will accelerate to keep you going up the hill. And once it hits 67, it continues on 68. And then once it hits 68, it caps there and doesn't go past. And then it levels out and goes back to 67. If you go downhill, you'll coast up. But I thought that was kind of weird, but I ended up figuring it out. And it's kind of cool to see what other people are doing, I guess, in their trucks. So anyway, I mentioned already that the air tanks were losing pressure and the airbag and stuff like that. What else was there this week? Well, I guess I didn't even cover what happened today. After I tried to get in the truck and I realized the steering lock was on there, I called the office. They put me back in the truck I've been in all week. And I told them, I'm going to be fine. I'll be back more than enough. They gave me a 5 a.m. store, a Sam's Club today. They gave me 4 stops. They gave me one in, where was it? It was Waynesboro, Statesboro, and then Macon. And the Macon Sam's Club was only 2 pallets. And as I was pulling out, there was another Martin truck coming in there that was frozen, that had frozen stuff in there, the meat and produce, obviously, at this time, because the reefer was there. And you can't deliver frozen dairy before a certain time. So he had gone down there. Luckily, I beat him there, because if not, I would have been waiting for him to puke the entire truck. But instead, I was able to jump in the truck and drive. I drive straight out, and then he jumped in. And since it was only 2 pallets, the biggest wait I had was them getting their act together in the morning, which they come in at 4, and then they have to ready the forklift, and then they have to move some stuff out of the way that the previous night's shift, just left all over, and then they finally let me in. Normally, I go around to the front of the building. Normally, I will go around to a side door, something like that, if someone's bringing in bread or chips or whatever. It was a Lay's truck this morning. And I'll go in that way. But this morning I went in the chip entrance, and she said, "Hey, would you mind waiting in the driver lounge?" And then she lets me on the other side of the locked door, and then I had to wait for somebody to come and get everything together. But anyway, what else is there? My system for managing the inventory. We have this sheet of paper that has all the different pallet positions, starting at the bottom, which is all the way in the back, going all the way up to the top, which is in the front. And some people will use highlights, and they'll highlight the truck number and the pallet number and stuff like that you can find that information on the stickers that are on the pallets. But I will tell you this. Let me break in here for a second, because the rest of this video is going to be really, really weird, because I'm extremely tired. I'm loopy. I'm just not able to focus. And you're going to see me even borderline doze off a few times. So I'm going to leave it in this video just because I find it hilarious, and it really shows the mindset that I'm in. And that is one of someone that has worked 5 solid days and has not been able to get an adequate amount of sleep because he's worried about his scheduling. Here's what I mean by that. My typical way that I work is I need to have, if I'm going to be working overnight, 6 to 7 hours of sleep. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's broken up a little bit with bathroom breaks or if something happens. As long as I can get back to sleep and there's no real chaos going on, it's fine. But planners, if they do their job well, then I wake up, I check the load, and I'm like, all right, that's no problem. And I go right back to sleep, roll over, go back to sleep, and I'm well rested by morning or by night because I drive overnight. But if they don't do their job well, or if I get a load that makes no sense or something crazy, if it starts 5 hours after I'm supposed to, if it's overscheduling me to do too much, or if I get 2 loads and they're back-to-back nonsense or something like that, then I have to call up the office. And at that point, my blood starts going because I'm like agitated. I have to get up and address stuff. And then I call the office and I have to talk to them and say, I need to talk to the planner. And then they're like, why do you need to talk to the planner? I'm like, because the job makes no sense. Then they have to relay the message for me. And then the planner has to look at it and determine what the issue is and then see if they can remove it, whatever. If the planner does a good job, though, I can roll over and go back to sleep. If they don't do a good job, then I get worked up and then I can't get back to sleep. So I'm on like 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep at most, because they don't schedule loads until 4 or 5 hours and before they want you to do them. And being that I'm asleep during that time, I'm at the mercy of whatever it is. Now, originally when I started this job, I would sleep through the entire time, and then I'd wake up, look at the job, and by then it was an hour and a half before it was supposed to go out, and then I had to go and do it. Or they would say, well, the job's been scheduled, the planners are gone, you got to do this job. So what I need to do is I had to get into the habit of waking up in order to address the issue while the planners were still there. And if not, then I was really just messed up. And then I would have to start really late or something like that, which means I can't get back to sleep, and I'm going to have to go in 4 or 5 hours later than normal. So on like 3 or 4 hours of sleep at most, I would then have to stay up 7 or 8 hours in order to go to work and work potentially 14 hours. And by the end of that shift, I'm completely brain dead. And if I did the first half of the load or something like that, and then came in, and before my second load or whatever went out on that, if I said, look, I'm brain dead or whatever, they're going to say, well, we've scheduled you this load, and they're going to put pressure on me about that. And then I'm going to have to bail on that and then feel bad, or power on through it and then be completely brain dead. My point here is planners have the power to do good to a driver or bad to a driver. If they do their job well, we're able to simply function the way we're supposed to function, go off and work, make the company happy, make ourselves happy and keep ourselves healthy, that kind of thing. If the planners don't do a good job, then we can't adequately sleep because we're going to be worked up and whatever else. There's one planner at this company that does a really consistently good job, in my opinion, for me. The other one is constantly, I'm on my toes because I don't know what to expect. There's a high probability if he ends up scheduling me, I'm going to get some jacked up load, and it's going to start way too late for me. It's going to just be it's not going to make any sense for me. And that's the point I'm trying to make with this particular part of the video. And I don't know if it is conveyed very well, or if it would be conveyed very, very well without this modification, this little butt in here. But this is the point I'm trying to make. And I'm going to let the video play now, and you're going to see me just in a bad mindset. Anyway, there we go. I totally lost my train of thought because I'm so tired. Man. I guess I'll sidestep then and talk about why I'm so tired. I'm so tired because I mentioned that there's two planners. There's a male and there's a female. The female understands me. I've had a conversation with her. A couple of interactions I've had with the male, I don't know what his deal is. I don't know if he just does not look at the time that I start or what. But if he would have had any amount of common sense, he would not have done to me what he did tonight. Usually what happens is because I'm not sent a load until after I've been asleep for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll usually wake up in the middle of the night because I'll either be too hot, too cold, or I have to go to the bathroom, something like that. And I'll get up and then I'll check my phone and see what the load is. Well, unfortunately, that has trained me now to get up after about 2 or 3 hours in order to check my phone to see what the load is. And tonight it was good. It was just going from Monroe to Waynesboro to Statesboro, and then to Macon. And it was just the two stops, the two pallets at the last Sam's Club, and it was like record time. So by the time the forklift guy came and got me, we checked in the two pallets, and then they were pulling them, and I handed the paperwork to the lady who gave it back to me signed, and I was back at the truck real quickly. That was really cool. I guess during the day you have more people that can run off and do things for you. That might be one of the advantages. But that was the first load I got. Ended up being about 457 miles on my trip odometer. But then as I'm going back to sleep, because I looked at that and I was like, okay, that's cool. And start to go back to sleep, and I hear a vibration. And I'm like, oh no, what is this? What is this? So I roll over and I check my phone, and I have a second load. This one goes up to Ellijay, and then it goes to Blue Ridge. Then it goes down to Niagara, 300 miles. And it leaves 5 hours after my shift ends. So obviously there's no way in the world I can do this. I can't do 7 stops and over 700 miles in less than 14 hours. I can't do it. So I ended up having to call the office, which whenever I see something screwy like this, I get, amped up. So I call the office, have to deal with this. And the guy I spoke to had to explain to me that he said, don't look at the miles. So the first load, he proceeds to explain to me why I can do the first load. He's like, there's no 4 a.m. stores. And then it goes Waynesboro, Statesboro. And then by the time you get to Macon, if there's a wait at all, it will be minuscule. But then the second load, he says, that's a dry van load. So that that can leave early. It's ready to go. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. And once you pick it up and you're out, you're good. And then I said, but the miles are important. He says, yeah. So now you brought the miles back into it. You're all right. You're all right. I'll have to talk to him about your loads, and we'll see what he does. He put the Waynesboro, Statesboro, Macon, load back on me, and then remove the other one. He had to remove them both, and then he added back on that one. I was like, what are you going to give me this time? So it's really frustrating to me. I don't know why he can't get my schedule down. He always has me overloaded. He always has me coming in later than I'm supposed to be, even though I usually come in fairly early. He'll sometimes have me in for, one time I remember that I was scheduled on one of my off days. And it's like, and I looked at it, and by the time I looked at it, it disappeared. So I was like, well, I can tell that wasn't the girl planner. It was obviously the boy planner who just, for whatever reason, thought I was working. And I don't know why. So anyway. Oh, I remember what I was going to say earlier. My system for managing loads. Some people will use highlighters and that kind of stuff. Me, what I do is I put, starting the ones come off the quickest, on the left-hand side, I will put circles. As that pallet comes off, I will check off the circle. And then I will check off the pallet number if it's a parent-child, which means there's like one stacked on top of another. I will get the stickers off of both of them, and sometimes they'll put the wrong parent on the wrong child, or it will be that the parent's too big, so they'll put the child on something else, on some other part, so the stickers will not align. Like the same stickers won't match. They may match this load here and the other load that just came off before that, but you don't need to really. Parents and childs on pallets don't really matter because they're not real. They're not alive. So they're not going to care. I mean, you're going to take everything off the pallets anyway. My system, some people will highlight it. They'll highlight all the first stop, yellow, the second stop pink, the third stop blue. What I do that helps me manage is I put a circle on the left-hand side for all the first stop. Then I'll put a circle on the other side for all the second stops, and then back onto the first side again for the third stops, and then back and forth until I run out of shapes. And I usually go by the Squid Game color. So I will start with circle, and then I will go square, then I will go triangle. If I end up having a fourth store, I will go into a diamond. So as opposed to a square, which is this way, I go into a diamond, which is this square and slightly more narrow. Anyway. Other observations for the week. Frozen food smells good. It's you go onto the truck and there's a natural kind of a nice smell to this conglomeration of all these different smells that comes off. So it all comes back to me, and it's actually, in my opinion, it's a fairly nice smell. It's kind of cool. Unfortunately, though, I did run into a couple of incidences this week where the pallets that were put on the back of the truck were put too close to the edge. So when they go to lift up their lift gate, which is a divider, it's a leveler for the dock, it goes out and then drops down. It was going to come down on the pallets. So what I ended up having to do in both cases is go out to the truck again, put it in drive, and creep forward. The second the truck feels like it just starts to move, you put on the brakes again and you stop, because you probably moved up this much, and that's more than enough. But I mean, it feels like you move up like an inch, but then you're like high over the ground, so it's going to look that way. But I tell you, the male planner is driving me crazy with what he does. And because he is changing my schedule around, I know it's the male planner because when I came in, the female planner was coming in. And I said, hey, were you working yesterday? She said, no. So it was him. But yeah, the frustration I have with him is that he sends me out on very weird loads that start too late, or he backs me up with 2 impossible loads for me to get in 14 hours. So anyway. Oh, yes, that's right. I'm starting to doze off here, so I'm going to have to call it here in a second. What was I about to say? I forgot at this point. I don't know. I guess it wasn't important. Before I get overly tired, I should go ahead and call it. I think I covered everything anyway. Oh, no, I didn't. One other interesting thing tonight is I looked at it, the temperatures in the 3 zones were 40, 30, 40. So that's produce, meat, produce. And I received messages all the time. A new important message has arrived, and I look at it, and it's an automated message that says, don't forget to get your load straps and contact the office if the consignee refuses to sign for the load. It's like, well, what else am I going to do? And then there are so many of those. Some people, geez, I'm sorry, my brain drifted again. So anyway, when you get messages, that always says a new important message has arrived, and you look at it and it's not important. It will be something goofy. Like today, it said 285. It said 85 East is at a standstill. It's the last message I received of the day. I'm like, 85 is a north-south. There is no east on 85, Interstate 85 or otherwise. So anyway, you get what I'm saying. It's just crazy. And I think that's the week. Got back in in a different truck tonight, but then I ended up having to get back into the one I've been using. So as of the time of this recording, he's probably just getting in, because when I finished, I went to Walmart and grabbed groceries and then went home and started to record this. So yeah, I'm pretty tired. And my brain is really just frazzled. It's starting to go all over the place. So if I've been a little loopy in this episode, I do apologize, because I am really tired. And the reason why is because once I go to sleep and I wake up after like 2 to 3 hours to check my load, if there's a second stupid load on there, I get wired while I call the office and tell them what they can and can't do. I can't do, 4 stops on the first, get back, and then turn around. And especially since one of them is a 4 a.m. store, I leave at 7. So I can't do all of it and then get back and then go back out, another 300 miles. It's just really stupid planning. It's not very intelligent planning, in my opinion. And I don't know why he's planning me that way, because it's exhausting and I can't do it. The willingness may be there sometimes. Like when I first come in, sometimes I'm really amped up. But the problem is when I have to call the office and address things, that means I'm sitting up, my brain's engaged, I'm looking at my phone, I'm having to do a worthwhile conversation with the office, and that's when I find out what's going on. But what's annoying to me, though, is if I don't have a load, I might wake up a second time. And then when I'm sitting a load, if I have to address it for some reason, I am going to be exhausted when it comes time for the mirror to go off, or the Alexa device to go off, and my phone to go off, and the alarm. But instead, I just sit there trying to get back to sleep, and I toss and turn. Now, I do have some valerian root, and it's the only pill I will take. And that's only because if you have so many things on your mind, it calms your brain a little bit, allowing you to rest. It doesn't put you to sleep. It doesn't wake you up. It doesn't do anything like that. It is just an agent that will help you to quiet your mind so you can go to sleep. And my last stop today was a 4 a.m. store. So I knew I was going to be arriving there at 4 a.m. And then from there, it was going to be about 2 hours back to the DC minimum. And then I was going to have, just have an observation and watch something. But then I didn't. So tired. And the reason why is because once I am wired, I can't go back to sleep. I will sit there tossing and turning. So I put in my hours today and did not go back out. But I tell you, I was exhausted. And I wasn't wobbly behind the wheel or anything like that. But believe me when I say that I was tired. I can feel my eyes, when they start to drift because, and that doesn't happen when I'm in the truck. I won't do that. Anyway. Jeez. Before I go to sleep. On camera. Sorry. Thanks for watching.